What up, everybody? Happy Tuesday, and welcome back to the Commanders Film Room, where we talk all things Commanders and break down the film. I'm here with my co-host, Mark Bullock. How you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing very well, thanks. And yourself?
I'm doing very well, man. Can't complain. I'm also here with Nick Akridge. How you doing, Nick?
Pretty good.
Cool. So we're in part 2 of our free agency series. We'll be looking at Bobby Wagner today, as well as Austin Ekeler and Jeremy Chin. Before we dive into it, I want 2 questions to kind of pose to the group to have a little conversation before we get started. So, it's been a whirlwind, guys. The past week has been crazy in regard to the Washington Commanders. We've had a major roster change. Over the last week, we've had 20 different additions to the team, but only 4 players retained from the previous rosters are re-signed. Those guys were Jamison Crowder, Jeremy Reeves, Cornelius Lucas, and FA Obata. Mark, I'm going to throw it over to you first. What's your overall impressions of this whole free agency period? Do you think Washington's been pretty prudent with their decisions? They've been pretty smart? Anything you're concerned about still? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think the overall most important takeaway is that they've had a good process. They haven't gone out and spent all the big bucks on the big name players. They haven't gone and made a huge trade for a T. Higgins or whatever and locked anyone into being a big contract for the next 5 years, right? I think the longest contract they've given out is a 3-year deal. And even then, those 3-year deals are fairly manageable. So they've kept themselves pretty clean cap-wise, but they still managed to add some good players. And they're taking some shots on a few guys on 1-year deals, giving them a chance to, prove themselves and earn bigger contracts down the road, either here or elsewhere, which is always a good motivating factor to get good performance out of players. And they've gone for guys that, fit what they're going to try to do. And with the history that Quinn and Witt have on the defensive side of the ball, at least, that they're going to adapt their defense to fit the personnel they have, because we've seen them do that. Obviously, Quinn had success with that Seahawks cover 3 system. And then when he went to Dallas, he recognized that the league has moved on and adjusted his system to play a lot more aggressive man coverage and lots of blitzing and that kind of thing. So he's capable of running lots of different systems and having success with that. So that suggests that the guys that they're bringing in are guys that they feel have fits within whatever system they want to run, and they can adapt whatever system they want to run to those players, as opposed to, the last regime where they sign a man corner and play him in zone, or they then draft a zone corner and play him in man, So I think overall the process is really good. And even if it could well be in 2 or 3 years' time, only 1 or 2 of these free agents have panned out. And even if that is the case, you can still have confidence that the process getting to signing these guys is good. And that's the important thing for long-term success.
I agree. I think walking away from free agency from the first week for me is that there seems to be a long-term plan. It seems to be kind of like a vision about where Washington wants to go. There are some scheme fit. As a person I worked with before, I kind of want them on my team again, which is also nice. But I also like the actual versatility of hey, if the plan doesn't work, if the contract doesn't work, then it's not going to sink us in regard to finances down the road. So I do like that. Nick, is there anybody that kind of stood out to you as a really big acquisitions you really like, maybe you're discouraged by, why did Washington pick that person up? What are your thoughts on that?
No, there wasn't really anyone that I was like, what are we doing here? All of them kind of made sense to me. Maybe the Ekeler one, but again, it's really cheap, and there's not like you said, there's almost no downside to it. But yeah, again, like Mark said, there's a process, and I like that even though they had the most cap space, they're not just spending it all just to spend it all. I mean, they still have the most cap space, and have also signed the most people. So it's kind of good to know that they're still kind of being frugal with how they spend that, while kind of trying to rehaul this roster that was in a pretty bad spot. We've all seen the clip of Adam Peters being silent when he was asked about the roster.
Awkward pause. Exactly right. Okay.
But yeah, no, I understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, and I think they're setting themselves up well.
Very good. All right, last question before we jump into the film. So, last time we talked to you, Sam Howell was on the roster. He was, was our starting quarterback last year, and there was talk about whether he'd stick around, be a quarterback 2, quarterback 3, working with Drake May. There's some confusion there. Mark, we'll start off with you. So we saw Sam Howell traded for we traded away Sam Howell in a 4th and 6th round pick and returned for a 3rd and a 5th. So there seemed to be pretty good return in regard to that. Well, what are your thoughts? Like, do you think he should have been traded? Do you think there was a world where he could have stayed here in Washington, or are you happy with the results? What are your thoughts about the Sam Howell trade altogether?
I think what I've come away from that deal with was that it's all about the long-term management, and they're going to draft a quarterback this year. That's fairly obvious, and if you're drafting a quarterback 2nd overall, he's going to be your guy. At least for the next few years. Sam Howell's contract runs out in 2 years. He's not going to re-sign with the team that just drafted a replacement for him. So
exactly.
He's not going to be here long term. So in that situation, you might as well try to get long-term assets and making a trade, getting something back for him now when he has 2 years of control rather than 1 year of control, as we have seen with the likes of Justin Fields, where his value was greatly depreciated because he only had 1 year of control left, and then you have to pay him. With Howell, you have 2 years of control, so a team doesn't have to necessarily start him right away, like the Seahawks. They don't have to start him right away. They can let him sit. They can let him develop. They can see what they have in him, and if they maybe like him, then this time next year they're going into next year with him competing for the job. So I think that provided better value than anything they were going to get in the future, because he probably wasn't going to play this year unless someone got hurt. And so you might as well get the value while you can. So I think, again, it points to a long-term viewpoint from this front office. You might as well get assets for him if he's not going to be in that long-term plan.
I think for the first time in a long time, Washington actually kind of maximize their assets. Typically, they kind of wait till the contract runs out or don't necessarily get great trade value back. So I feel like Washington did take advantage with that for sure. Nick, what are your thoughts on Howard? Do you think there was a world where he could have potentially stayed here? And are you happy with the trade, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think once they signed Mariota, I think the writing was kind of on the wall for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're obviously going to draft one at 2, and then you have him Mariota there, and yeah, like Mark said, you're getting better assets for now. If you wait a year, you're not getting a top 100 pick. I mean, I know that we're trading, basically moving up 2 spots with the 2 kind of pick swaps there, but a top 100 pick is massive for someone that probably was not going to play this year.
Absolutely.
So I think it was time to move on. He wasn't their guy. He wasn't drafted by them, so they have unfortunately no loyalties to him. But I think I was kind of, always a little farther down on Howell than a lot of other people. I think at the start there was some hope there, and I was a huge fan of him coming out of college. But he just couldn't shake the whole sack issues. That was kind of the big thing there. And but I think he's kind of shown that he can stick around and kind of be a long-term sort of backup guy in the NFL that might bounce around some teams, but again can come in a spot start situation and make some plays. Because he definitely made some for Washington here, and
Yes, he did. So best of luck to him. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to pivot over to our game film. We're going to start looking at Bobby Wagner, Austin Ekeler, and Jeremy Chinn. These guys are all polarizing, in my opinion. These are probably the biggest free agent names that we actually picked up over the offseason. And, we don't know what they have left. Like, obviously, these, 5 years ago, these guys may have been marquee stars, but what do they have left in regard to that? So we're actually going to focus on that and break it down. And the one I'm most intrigued about is Bobby Wagner. So I'm going to throw it over to Mark right now. We're going to start off with him.
Yeah, so we'll start off with Bobby Wagner, and he is the one that everyone is. Obviously, he's the big name, and he's been one of the best linebackers for the last decade in the NFL. And so he's had a very good career, and obviously he's coming toward the end of that. And then the question is, what does he have left? And when I went back and watched some of Seahawks film and specifically Bobby Wagner, I think there is still enough there that you're going to get good play out of him this year. Certainly better play than they've had a linebacker for the last few years. And that is, granted, quite a low bar, but he's certainly going to be better than what they've had. So, and this is a good example of that. And something that we haven't really seen in Washington is we've got Bobby Wagner here as the Mike linebacker, and the issues that Washington have had with the Mike linebacker is whoever they've put there has always been slow at being able to process the information happening in front of him before then playing. So when Jamin Davis played Mike, you'd often see him paused at the snap and trying to diagnose, okay, where's this guy going? Where's that guy going? Do I need to make any checks? And then the ball would be snapped and he'd be stood in place. Whereas Bobby Wagner, as you'll see here, anticipates exactly what's happening. They bring a tight end in motion across the formation here, and he's going to come and try to block on this side. And Wagner, you can see he's already looking out here, seeing the guy in motion. And he's instantly going to know, as soon as this ball snapped, he knows this tight end's coming across the block and the run's coming this side, and he immediately flows over there to make the play. So you'll see that here. Run this on, he immediately spots the tight end coming out and the run going there, and he's one of the first to get across here. You can see this is the other linebacker that hasn't even diagnosed and read what's going on, and Bobby Wagner's already over there and almost in position, and he slides across. And again, you can see just the contrast in positioning. Wagner started over here, his other linebacker started on the hash mark, and Wagner's the one that's going to be there making the play before his teammate. And you'll see it again from the end zone angle. You'll get a slightly cleaner look of it from him. Again, his head's turned out here. When they motion that, he knows that tight end's coming across and he's going to try to block this side. And as soon as the ball snapped, Wagner's moving across and he's already 2 or 3 yards forward, and the other linebacker is kind of stood still waiting to see what's happening. And this is kind of what Jamin Davis was doing when he was Mike linebacker, or at the start of the last year, this is what Cody Barton was doing when he was Mike linebacker. They were too busy sitting there kind of processing what exactly is happening, and they weren't getting into position quickly enough. And that's what Wagner has seen: thousands of looks, thousands of motions, thousands of formations. He knows what's coming. And he knows how to study exactly what the tendencies are and where the ball's going. So again, as soon as the ball snapped, he's already straight away getting into position, gets across to the other side of the line, beats his teammate to the ball, and goes and makes the tackle. So that in itself is just a huge upgrade from what they've had at linebacker.
Like we talk a lot about anticipating when it comes to quarterbacks, but linebackers is kind of similar. Like he's anticipating what his keys are going to be instead of, reading and then reacting. Like he knows what's going to happen. And it's just such a flip from what we've seen these past couple years. Like Mark said, there's not a front, there's not a motion, there's nothing that he hasn't seen. 1,000 snaps like every year of his career, basically. So he's going to know exactly what's coming before it happens every single time.
I think that's the one thing we can kind of take away from Wagner as well. He's kind of a coach on the field, because the intangibles, like hopefully he can kind of untap some of the missing parts with Jamin Davis's game too. That'd be great.
Yeah. And so we've got another one here where there's a little bit question of, is he fast enough to still make an impact? Is he still athletic enough to make an impact? And here you've got Rams running an outside zone to the right here. Wagner is lined up between the right tackle and the tight end. And they've got a couple of extra blockers on 2 receivers as the line tight. So it's kind of a hint that they might be running that way. And again, Wagner anticipates the run and he starts working outside, and maybe a younger Bobby Wagner runs straight through this gap and penetrates and makes this play in the backfield. But he has lost a little bit of a step. He's not what he once was, 5 or 10 years ago, who among us are. But he rather than just sprinting straight through this gap and trying to make this tackle, he's wise enough to know that he has limitations, and so he stays patient. And you can see him here just holding his position, because he knows the running back has an important decision to make here. Does he bounce this run outside and try to keep pressing to the edge, or does he try to make this cut back? And if he tries to cut this back, Bobby Wagner's the guy that's going to have to fall back into this gap here to try to make that play. So he just holds his position, makes the back declare where he's going to go, and then works off of that. So the back ends up deciding that he's going to bounce this run outside. And once he's made that decision, Wagner then knows, okay, he's not cutting this back here now. He's coming outside, and I can flow freely to the edge and go make the play.
That's a
so
great
it's
clip,
again,
Mark.
it's understanding. He's a smart player, and he doesn't necessarily have the same athleticism that he once had. He's still a decent athlete, but the mental sharpness is what makes up for it.
What I took away from that one little clip was a great pursuit angle, kind of he corralled the running back from getting too wide, and he was smart enough to kind of break it down and kind of anticipate where he was going next. It seemed like he was poised with his pursuit, which is great.
Yeah, and he could have, as I say, a younger Bobby Wagner might have seen that first gap and just sprinted through it and tried to make a tackle. And a younger Bobby Wagner probably would have been good enough to do that. But some linebackers do try to do that, and they shoot the gap and they go too quickly, too early, and it gives the back a chance to cut their run back early. Wagner played that patiently and ended up with a good result because of it. So here we've got a different type of run. It's going to be, they're trying to make it look like an inside zone run, but they're actually running a gap scheme with a tight end pulling across, and Trent Williams is here at left tackle, and he's actually responsible for down blocking Bobby Wagner. And I would not want to be anyone in this position watching Trent Williams trying to down block me, but Bobby Wagner isn't fazed by it. And again, you see here, you got the fullback and the tight end coming across to kind of kick out the edge defenders here, and Trent Williams is going to try to work down the line and pin Bobby Wagner inside. And Wagner at this point kind of identifies, okay, I've got the tight end and the fullback sifting back across this way. This run is actually, rather than coming up the middle, it's curving back that way. So I need to get out there. But as he starts to work that side, he's suddenly got this monster of a man, Trent Williams, right in front of him. And obviously, most of us would run away scared over here because Trent Williams is a monster. But
beast, yeah.
He does a nice job of shedding this block real quickly. He anticipates Williams coming to him, and he kind of shifts inside, jumps inside, drops his hands and kind of pulls Trent Williams over, and then he uses a nice swim move to get through. So that tosses kind of Trent Williams aside, which again you just don't see many people do, but Wagner's an experienced vet. He knows how to get off blocks real quickly, and then he's able to get back across in position to go make that tackle and keep the gain to a minimum. And shedding blocks is just something that he's still very, very good at, and he might not be as fast or as strong as he once was, but the technique is just fantastic. And so here this time they're running a wide zone to Wagner's side. The right guard's going to try and climb up and block him. And down here, obviously in the red zone, you're very vulnerable. If you don't make this play, there's a big chance of a touchdown. And again, he gets the lineman to commit to trying to block him, and then he skips outside and makes his target small, and then uses a little swim move to get past him and pulls the lineman off balance and skips by him and reemerges in that gap. And as you can see, if he gets kicked out there's this lane here for McCaffrey to work through and then score a touchdown. But because he shed the block, he's able to fill the hole, make the tackle, get a stop on the goal line. So as a run defender, I have no issues at all with Bobby Wagner. He's going to be a huge upgrade for Washington, especially as a Mike. And he may have lost a little bit of a step physically, but mentally he's more sharp than ever. And so as a run defender, I don't think there's any issues. I think he'll be a fantastic player. The question then becomes, how is he in coverage? And that's a fair question to ask. Again, the athletic ability at his age is always something that defenses are going to look to exploit. But Wagner still excels in certain areas of coverage. And one of the most popular ways you'll see teams attack the middle of the field where linebackers play is on play action. And this is a very common way of doing it. What the Lions are doing here, Shanahan's have been doing it for decades, and McVay's and all of those guys, that's half the NFL's offense now, do these kind of play action passes where they try to get these linebackers to bite up, and then they run a crossing route deep over or a deep in or something like that across the middle of the field in behind where those linebackers are meant to be for a nice big game with yard after catch potential. But Bobby Wagner, as we kind of talked about, there's not a play that he hasn't seen. He's been in the NFL for a decade. He knows what's coming. And he knows that when offenses aren't running the ball, they're probably trying to run a play action. So what he does here is, we see the ball snap, they run the play action. Doesn't bite too heavily on it. He takes one step forward, but you can kind of almost see him already anticipating this isn't actually a run play. And you can kind of tell from the linemen are backing off rather than coming towards him. He gets a pretty good indication that actually this is a play action pass, and you can kind of already see him ready to bail out of this. and he immediately bails out of it, and then he uses what's known as a robot technique, where you kind of roll over and back, and then you turn your back to the quarterback, and you just look for the threat of the crossing route, because again, that's what offenses look to do off of play action. They look to attack the middle of the field because they want the linebackers to bite up and vacate that middle of the field. So Wagner immediately turns his back to the quarterback, not worried at all about what he's doing. He's just looking for who's this threat that's going to attack the middle of the field. And you can see as he does that, he's sprinting back up that hash mark, but you can spot, there's my threat. There's the receiver breaking over the middle. That's where the ball's trying to go to. So once he spots that, he just kind of matches that route, gets himself in the throwing lane. He doesn't go too immediately straight to the receiver. He understands the receiver is going to be breaking over the middle. So he keeps himself in the throwing lane for if the quarterback wanted to throw out in front. And you'll see from the end zone angle here that Jared Goff was 100% looking for that route. You get to the top of the drop here. Jared Goff's looking straight down the middle of the field, wanting to hit this over route. And again, Bobby Wagner is right in that throwing lane. He attaches it to it nicely. And Goff wants to hit it, but he just can't. Wagner's in the way. And that makes Goff have to kind of scramble, hold onto the ball, scramble, and it results in a sack.
Yeah, I like the angle he took there. If you go back to the when he takes it, a lot of times you see a lot of linebackers run straight at where the right wide receiver is to try to cut that off because they sort of panic a little bit. But again, he knows where this route is intended and where it's going, and takes a really nice angle to kind of cut that off. Because again, if he runs straight back, a good quarterback can hit that throw and know that he doesn't have a chance. But again, it's Bobby Wagner, so he knows that route is not going to be thrown at that certain time, and takes a good angle.
Exactly. And so this is something that pops up consistently. Again, this is half the NFL offenses in the league are running some kind of Shanahan style system. So this is what they do. And so Wagner is still very effective with this. And this is the same game against the Lions, but there's plenty of examples when they've played other teams like the 49ers or the Rams or whatever. You get that same kind of over route, this time from a slot receiver. And again, Bobby Wagner is going to initially step forward on the run fake, quickly after one step recognize actually this isn't a run, this is a play action. He's going to again turn his back, look for where the threat is. He identifies the slot receiver as the threat, and he again kind of bends his path back into the throwing lane. And this time, because the receiver's coming towards him, he knows he can actually open up and get his eyes back on the quarterback because he knows the receiver's coming towards him, and he's going to cover that zone. So again, the quarterback can't throw that ball. He's under pressure, and he immediately has to kind of take the check down to the running back in the flat to avoid getting sacked. So again, it's just a great example of a really experienced guy that understands how defenses look to attack offenses. Offenses look to attack defenses, and understanding where the threats are and taking them away.
Absolutely. I think just kind of watching him, he seems pretty fluid for the most part. Like, maybe he lost a step when he, from his 20-year-old self, but the savviness where he can kind of like take the better angles to prevent these passes actually was pretty strong in regard to that. My question to both of you guys would be, how do you think the linebackers are going to kind of play out? Like, do you think Bobby Wagner is still an every down linebacker? Do you think he'll primarily play the Mike? Do you think Frankie Luvu is going to be doing something else? Like, what are your takeaways in regard to the dynamic of our linebacker group coming forward? What do you guys think there?
All I know right now is that Bobby Wagner doesn't come off the field unless Bobby Wagner wants to come off the field.
Okay. All right.
I mean, literally almost 1,000 snaps every single year of his career. I don't see that stopping now. I don't see why it would stop now.
Mm-hmm.
Then the question kind of turns to what you do with Luvu and Davis.
Yeah.
Don't run a lot of three linebacker sets. We've talked multiple times now how Dan Quinn last year used a lot of safeties and corners, and that was more kind of out of a necessity. So I don't know if it's going to be something that he does again this year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it isn't because of how we've seen them sort of attack the linebacker position. But Bobby Wagner will not come off the field. And then it kind of turns to more what you want to do with Luvu. And if you want to kind of use him more as a pass rusher at times, then you bring Davis onto the field.
Mm-hmm.
Or you just kind of sit with Wagner and Luvu as your two linebackers and nickel.
Yeah, it sounds like Davis is going to be one with a little bit of a snap pinch, a little bit, right? Kind of like my first assumption. Like, Mark, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Bobby Wagner will be coming off the field. if anything, just for logistics, if he's the one with the green dot in his helmet and he's got the speakers in his headset hearing the play call, if he's coming off on third downs, that means they then need to switch the helmet with Luvu or Davis or whoever else would then call the plays, right? So if he's coming off the field, someone else needs to put the green dot on. And then you're having Frankie Luvu having to run to the sideline on third down after making a tackle from the opposite side of the field on 2nd and 10 or whatever, and he's going to have to come across, change his helmet, and get back on the field to go make the play call, right? So logistically, it just makes it awkward, and maybe you could get around that by giving Luvu the green dot and having him call the play in the huddle and then letting Bobby Wagner take over at the line of scrimmage. You could possibly do that, but then it gets a little bit of a muddy way of doing things. So I think Bobby Wagner will be on the field as the Mike linebacker. As Nick said, I think Luvu will. My guess is Luvu's going to be more of a pass rusher than a pure linebacker, which would mean if they do want to keep two linebackers on the field, you'd have Davis as the will linebacker or the weak side linebacker, and Luvu kind of be as this roaming pass rusher that kind of lines up all over and rushes. Similar to the Micah Parsons role, I guess you could say, but obviously want to caveat that with he's not Micah Parsons.
Sounds like you're saying he is Micah Parsons.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I got from it. Yeah.
No, I mean, last time we talked before the Wagner signing, we were kind of trying to figure out what they were going to do with Luvu and Davis, and who was going to be the Mike and all that sort of stuff. And it didn't really make too much sense at the time, but now it obviously does make sense if Bobby Wagner was the guy the whole time.
Great plan. And before we move on, I just want to thank the 1,054 people that are watching across all platforms on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. So thank you guys for jumping on. Feel free to jump in the chat and ask us any questions. Mark and Nick will do their best to answer. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Sorry for the mustache.
Go ahead, Mark. You got it.
So the big concerns then is Wagner's obviously still a very good run defender, and he is very alert to play action and knows how to handle play action stuff. So the big question is, how does he handle real drop back passes, and the way that teams tend to attack linebackers in coverage now is they'll like to go, like we see here with the 49ers, they'll go with an empty formation. They'll line up their best receiver or one of their best receivers in Deebo Samuel here inside, and that will match him up with the linebacker because the defense has to spread out with an empty formation, and the linebacker is still going to stay in the middle of the field. Unless they're playing pure man coverage, then he's going to go and match up the tight end. But if you're playing any kind of zone, he's going to stay in the middle of the field because he's the Mike linebacker, and that's going to leave him trying to have to cover Deebo Samuel in the slot, which is obviously a bad matchup. It's a tough matchup for any linebacker, so it's not exclusive to Wagner, but this is just some of the ways that he might be attacked. And you can see here, he just kind of runs a little pivot out. And as I'll run this through, I don't think Wagner does a bad job here at all, really. Deebo makes a nice cut here, and he gets a little bit of separation, but Wagner's pretty much there the whole way. And yeah, he gives up the catch. I would think probably 90% of linebackers probably give up the catch to Deebo Samuel in that kind of situation. He's there to make the tackle pretty quickly. Again, yeah, he gives up a first down, but it's something that I think most linebackers would end up giving up a first down. I think he did a relatively good job in that situation, and it's a tough situation for a linebacker to be put into. So I'm not too concerned about that type of play. The one I'm more concerned about is this one here, and this is the kind of thing where his athletic drop off, if you will, kind of shows up. They're playing zone coverage here. He's going to drop into an underneath hook curl zone, and they've just got a little underneath route with Christian McCaffrey on the opposite side of the field. So this isn't Bobby Wagner's assignment at all to start off with here, but he's going to just drop back into his zone, and you can see him zoning off here, and the ball's going to come underneath Christian McCaffrey. But the Bobby Wagner of old is going to close in real quick on McCaffrey and go make a tackle and keep this gain to 4 or 5 yards, right? The Bobby Wagner now is just that little bit slower. He's probably a yard or two behind where he normally would be, where he would have been if he was 3 or 4 years younger. And that gives McCaffrey just that little bit of extra space. And obviously McCaffrey is a very good player, especially in space. And he's just going to kind of loop around Wagner and use his athletic upside over Wagner here to kind of scoop around him, and Wagner's not able to redirect quickly, and he kind of gets run by and gives up the first down, and needs his teammates to make the play. So that's the area where I would have more concern with him, is in space trying to make tackles. He missed more tackles this year than you would think a Bobby Wagner type of player would do, but it's more in these kind of situations that I just talked about, where he's kind of zoning off and the ball's not going to a guy that he's covering. So the issue isn't his coverage. The issue is they're checking the ball down underneath, and he's one of the guys underneath it and then has to rally to the ball. And obviously other defenders have got to be involved in it as well. It can't just be one guy. But the Bobby Wagner of old probably makes this tackle here at the 35. Whereas now he's kind of having to step off, give McCaffrey a little bit of extra room so that he has time to adjust himself, and he still gets outrun and gives up the first down. So for me, that would be the concern of where I am with Wagner, is when he's has to break down and try to make a tackle in space. That's where the athletic issues, the athletic drop-off, shows up more often than anything else. In terms of a run defender, he's still fantastic. On play action, he's still really good. And even in coverage, I think he's still pretty solid. It's just when that ball's checked down underneath and he's trying to force to make a tackle in space, that's where the athleticism and the age kind of shows up a little bit.
Mark, altogether, are you pleased with the signing? Do you feel like it was a big addition, a big significant upgrade from what we had before? And what are your thoughts on it altogether?
Absolutely. The mental sharpness at the Mike linebacker position, the ability to not just, as I kind of spoke about, Mike linebackers in Washington the past few years, at the snap of the ball, they're often paused and trying to read what's happening and not playing fast. And Wagner is the exact opposite. He's not just playing fast, he's anticipating exactly what's going to happen and gets to spot quicker than other players that don't have all the extra added responsibility of playing Mike. So that's on its own a huge upgrade. The anticipation and understanding of stuff on play action, big upgrade. The coverage, I think, will be okay. The only concern I have is, as I said, the tackling in space. But overall, he's still a pretty good player. Still a very good player in certain aspects of his game, and better than anything Washington's had at the Mike linebacker position in quite a while. So yeah, I think it's a good signing, and obviously the off the field stuff is speaks for itself.
I'm saying this jokingly, but I also mean it at the same time. We watched Frankie Louisville last week. We all broke down the film and we saw how he's playing with his hair on fire, and running down the field, screaming down the field. It's kind of nice having an aggressive linebacker core as opposed to one that was reactive. So it's kind of nice seeing the whole, anticipatory, smart linebackers that actually get upfield. So I do like that aspect of it. It sounds like we're going to pivot in a moment, right? Let's kind of see that.
Yep.
One Ekeler in a moment.
That's all I've got on Wagner. So
cool. We'll go there in a second. Let me kind of highlight some of the people in the chat. Utah, he said it's so comforting knowing that we got Bobby Wagner's playing his high IQ on the field for this year. I agree. Colin said Wagner is the 22nd highest APY for linebackers, is getting paid to play a lot. It's kind of what Nick alluded to, that 1,000 snaps per season. And then Colin also added it's a check down league at the moment, so that could be a problem potentially with Bobby Wagner. So something to kind of keep an eye on. All right, let's kind of pivot right now. So I think, besides Bobby Wagner, I think Austin Ekeler kind of got people excited, but also kind of raised some eyebrows as well, because, me coming from a fantasy perspective, I know this is a film breakdown, but Austin Ekeler was a touchdown generator for years, right? It was 20 touchdowns, 18 touchdowns in 2021, 2022, had a significant slowdown last year, in Los Angeles. So I'm kind of curious to see what Nick's thoughts are on this. Do you want to give 1 minute kind of summary or 1 sentence summary before we jump into this?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird making the PFF guy talk about running backs, but
it don't matter, right? Exactly. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of know what Ekeler brings in terms of his running ability, his receiving ability, and all the touchdowns he scores and stuff like that in fantasy purposes. And again, he's getting up there in age, and we're kind of hoping that last year was just kind of injury riddled and he couldn't really be his full self. He's kind of talked about, and you kind of hope that he's back to his 100% self. There seemed to be a little bit of a slowdown in, kind of his burst and athletic ability and whatnot. But again, you're just kind of hoping that's chalked up to the injury and that's, it's not that worrisome. But again, it's a 2-year deal, right? Well, you can get out at 1 year, and it's not something that is, again, going to break the bank. You're not paying a running back $40 million. It doesn't stop you from drafting another one, late in this round. It doesn't stop you from giving Brian Robinson a lot of carries. So I think, again, it's more something that, you bring in a veteran guy, and I think it's really going to help the quarterback a lot as well, because what I'm going to go over is absolutely zero running ability and no receiving ability, and it's all basically pass pro. And it's something he's pretty good at, and something, again, that comes with playing a lot of snaps and knowing what you're going to see, knowing what to expect from defenses. And for him, it's kind of him always being in the right position.
I think that is an underrated element, Nick, and I'm glad you're highlighting that, because I think as a veteran, it will be important to protect our rookie quarterback, whoever it may be. I think Austin Ekeler does kind of offer that receiving check down ability as well. That's, it's been a hallmark of his career throughout his career. So I'm interested to see some blocking. Let's break it down, Nick. Let's go for it. Yeah,
the fun stuff for running backs, but they don't. There's not many opportunities where they're kind of in a one-on-one block. We have him with 56 pass block reps this year. So again, there's not too many, which kind of skews the grading a lot. So I wouldn't look too heavily into that. But yeah, he's seen it all. He knows where to be. And I kind of went through all of his pass blocking reps, and I really only saw maybe 1 or 2 where you can kind of blame it on, a missed assignment. The rest were kind of, just maybe he lost and whatnot. But again, you're not expecting running backs to hold up in pass pro for 3 to 4 seconds. So just going through some of the ones that I kind of wanted to highlight again here, we have the Jets kind of scrambling at the snap, and again, he's scanning and quickly picks up the linebacker blitzing here, Quinnen Williams. This is the job of running back. You can just kind of see how quickly he reacts here and just kind of gets his eyes straight to the linebacker, knows exactly where that threat's going to be, and gets over there and saves Herbert, lets him get it off at the last second. Same sort of thing here. Again, shotgun, know where you need to be protecting for him here. He knows with these 4 down linemen, he knows that he's looking at these linebackers, any sort of blitzers that they're adding on. They're all sliding to the right here. So that he needs to step up and take this linebacker, and he does just enough, cuts him there, and again, allows the quarterback to get some time. So for Ekeler, it's, he might not win every single rep. He's not going to overpower you in the pass pro. That's not what any running back's going to do, but understanding your assignment, being able to cut guys down like this is key, and it's something that he's really good in and knows where he needs to be at all times. There's going to be some bad ones sprinkled in here. I don't know which ones are which yet, but again, knowing where your weakness is, knowing who your threats are. He's looking at these 2 linebackers here. A little hesitant here to kind of get there, but gets over there, scans it quick enough, hits the linebacker, gives Herbert just enough time to throw it. Or I don't know if that's Herbert or Drake May there, but gives him just enough time to throw it there. And puts him on the ground too.
I think with this whole, pass protection element, he's going to be on the field more than we maybe anticipated, right? Because I think we know Brian Robinson will probably be the early down back, but maybe Ekeler will have a little carved out niche as a blocking back,
Yeah, I mean, again, it's you want experience out there. Like you want, especially for young quarterbacks, they don't have to think about what the running back's going to do. They can trust Ekeler. They can trust him to be where he's supposed to be, pick up who he's supposed to pick up. And again, that's what he's going to look at. How quick this is. Again, scans the whole line, knows exactly where he's going to be weak, sees the linebacker blitzing, picks him up, does his job. And that's all you're going to ask of him. You don't need him to be, overpowering or anything, but just gets himself in the way and does his job. I think this is the so again, he's not going to be overpowering in pass protection here. Again, little play action fake, sees what this linebacker blitzing. No, he's just got to put his face in there, just kind of get in the way. Again, he's not going to be overpowering against Patrick Queen there. He might get blown back, but he gives his quarterback just enough time to release it to the check down. Not many people are going to be able to stay in the way of Patrick Queen kind of rushing at them like that. So again, but he knows where he needs to be. This one, I believe this is the right one. Might be one of my favorite reps of pass pro I've ever seen from a running back. He basically single-handedly picks up a stunt here from these 2 linebackers. So again, 23 is going to be the penetrator on this stunt. 8's supposed to loop around. The center looks to be a little late on who to pick up. And for Ekeler, when you have these sim pressures, these double A gap looks from the linebacker, one of those is going to be his guy if they both blitz. Center's going to take one depending on which way he goes, and the other one's for the running back. But center takes 8 here, and he's going to take the penetrator, and again, just knocks him out of the way, picks up 8 on his own, basically picks up 2 guys at once all by himself there. Gives Herbert just enough time to make the throw. It's one of the best reps I've seen in pass pro in a very long time to pick up a stunt basically all on your own as a running back. Next one here against the Patriots. This one's more just kind of, again, scanning the protection, finding your weaknesses, gets lucky with this guy falling on the ground, but then again, still is able to give enough of an effort here against that free rusher to give Herbert time to step up and make the throw. Just being in the right place, being in the way, being in the spot that you're supposed to be in is the biggest thing here. Same thing here. Again, you see the blitz coming from the linebacker. Get yourself in the way, cut him down, easy, and then go for the finish. I like that at the end. Goes for the little finish there. Doesn't really get it, but yeah, that's kind of what all of this is. It's just kind of him being in the right spot. There's some where he's gonna miss at times because you're not expecting a running back to be able to hold up in pass pro all the time. But again, understanding what you're going to get from a defense here and know your assignment. Again, it's another stunt here with the 2 linebackers. Understanding what you're getting and picks it up and does a great job.
I think very similar to Bobby Wagner, having a kind of a heady, cognitive player on the offensive side of the ball will help out the quarterback and protect him and help him in protection. Makes sense.
I mean, again, it's just about knowing where you need to be, and this just kind of shows, again, his intelligence here. I kind of like this for kind of how quickly you can sort of see him flip his head and read this. He sees with these linemen stunting in like that or slanting in like that they're setting up either some sort of blitz from out here or the linebacker's going to loop around. They're not going to slant like that unless there's some sort of threat. So he recognizes that pretty quickly, finds the linebacker, and knows he's blitzing and picks him up. Again, wouldn't need to because the ball's already out in time, but it just kind of shows that he knows exactly what's coming, even when there isn't a threat there.
Nick, I don't know if you had the chance to kind of run the numbers, but was Austin pretty efficient this year for the most part? Was he not efficient? What do you think he has in regard to actually contributing in regard to the run game and pass game? Yeah,
I mean, it looked like he lost a step a bit at times.
Okay.
But again, you're banking on that being injury related, and he kind of talked about it a lot that it was injury related. But again, they're always going to say that if their money's on the line. But so you're just kind of hoping he gets back to that form, and if he's 100%, I don't see why he would slow down. And I think that you can kind of see a nice little a duo there. But eventually, there are some bad clips here. I can't remember where they are, but there are some where he does kind of mess up, but that's not one of them. Again, cutting the block. Quarterback probably doesn't need a scramble, but kind of live and die when your running back cuts like this. It's kind of live or die there. And
that was something I saw consistently with him. He's a smaller guy. Yeah, you had that one. I had that one as well. He's a guy that, because he's smaller, he knows that he's not going to be able to stand up to these guys, as Nick's done a great job of pointing out. He's so good at identifying blitzes, and I actually have a clip I do want to show. If you want to find your bad clips, I can show the one good one.
Here's one of them.
Okay.
But I mean, it just kind of shows the example again. Like Mark said, he's not going to overpower you. He's not going to win often in pass pro. And again, this one's kind of one where he was a little too aggressive in taking the penetrator on this stunt. But there's some bad there. I mean, again, but if you're expecting your running back to hold up in pass pro consistently and for 3-4 seconds, then it's usually not going to work out too well.
My question to you guys, obviously you watch the film more in detail than I do. I guess, was Antonio Gibson more of the primary pass protector blocker for the quarterback last year? And I guess, how does Ekeler compare? Do you think did Gibson has some flaws as well. Like, Mark, I see you nodding. Do you have any input on that or thoughts on that?
Yeah, Gibson was their third down back, so he was the guy that would stay in and pass protect. He wasn't bad, and he's obviously a bigger body than Ekeler, so he could sustain blocks a little bit better. But Eckler's experience is something Nick has made a great point of how well he identifies different stunts and different blitzers. And that really stood out to me. I spent the day watching Ekeler because I'm writing a post on him tomorrow. And the thing that stood out to me was how well he identified stunts and blitzers and he was so good at identifying where the pressure was coming from. Now, once he identified that guy, he didn't always pick him up. As Nick said, like, he's a smaller guy and he tended to go for cut blocks. And as Nick has kind of shown, he cuts guys and that can work effectively at stopping the initial rush. But those guys can then get back up and the pressure can still get there pretty quickly. But again, as Nick has said, running backs aren't expected to sustain blocks for 2, 3, 4 seconds. They're there to pick up the initial blitz and get the quarterback time to get the ball out quickly. So he does a really good job of that because he's very smart, very cerebral, and understands pass protection schemes and where the threats are coming from. So that is what stands out. That's what puts him probably above Gibson for me as a pass protector, is that Gibson, when he identified where rushes are coming from, he probably was a better guy at taking on those blocks because he's a bigger back.
Sheer size, yeah.
Yeah. But Ekeler doesn't have very many mental errors. He's very, very good at understanding where the different blitzes are coming from and getting in the right positions. Whereas Gibson had 1 or 2 plays where he'd be like, oh, I completely missed that I was meant to be blocking that safety coming from the right side and I was trying to release left into the flat as a receiver, So those were the kind of plays Gibson missed, which Ekeler just doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have him with, 1 maybe missed assignment on the pressures he's given up, which that's kind of what you're looking for from the running back. Again, you're not expecting him to hold up all the time in pass pro, especially for someone his size, but he still does hold his own here. I mean, this is kind of teach tape in terms of a block here. Takes the linebacker completely out of the play. So there are still times where he can hold up and hold his own. Which one is this? All right. Yeah. So again, knows exactly what's coming from the defensive line here. Again, both of these guys are slanting inside. So he's looking at them the whole time. So he knows that either this guy's going to come loop around or there's going to be some sort of threat here off the edge. So that's where he's got to get. So he knows that. And right after the play action fake, goes and gets his guy and takes him out of the play. And that is all I've got.
Good stuff, Nick. Let's kind of throw it back. So I guess we want to touch on Ekeler some more, Mark. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I got a few things of Ekeler. Nick covered the pass protection very well, but I just wanted to show this one rep because it's a fun one where the Bears have kind of similar idea that we've been looking at with linebackers, but they're not both in the A gaps. They kind of move them around. And what they run here is called a coffee house stunt, where this linebacker bails out and fakes like he's going to drop into coverage. And quite a lot of the time, what that will do is get guys that are looking at him to be like, oh, okay, he's dropping off into coverage. I see him turning his hips and looking to run. I can go release into my route. But Ekeler is smarter than that. He's wiser than that. And he understands that sometimes guys fake that. So you'll see here, linebacker at the snap kind of bails out and just fakes like he's going to drop into coverage and he's looking out here for a threat. And again, a lot of running backs in this position would be like, cool, I've seen him step back, I'm releasing into my route instantly. But Ekeler knows, actually, there is still a huge threat here. There's a big gap, and there's a reason there's a gap is because this guy's coming right back. So Ekeler stays patient, identifies that linebacker is actually still coming. He doesn't release into his route, and he gets back in and makes the block. And again, as Nick said, the blocks aren't necessarily always great, but the understanding of where the pressure is coming from and where who's rushing and having the patience there to understand that guy wasn't actually dropping into coverage, he was still a threat, gave Herbert the chance to get this throwaway and goes and completes a pass.
Yeah, I mean, half the battle for running backs in terms of pass protection is just getting in the way. I mean,
disruptions, right? Just
you
getting
just
in the
want
way.
them to get in the way because on that last play, like he showed it, Herbert was loading up to throw no matter what happened. If that guy was, beat the block or not, he does just enough. You might not say he wins on that rep, but he did just enough to give him enough time to kind of throw it.
Exactly. And it's a play that a lot of running backs in pass protection, the moment they see the linebacker that was a threat turn like they're going to drop into coverage, they immediately look away from him and think, I'm running my route now, because that's the more fun thing to do, is go catch passes. So I thought I would show just a little bit of what he is as a pass catcher, because that also plays into how you can pass protect with a running back. So first, little choice route, very basic thing, but if you have a running back that can do it, it adds a lot to your offense. So here you're going to have him come out of the backfield. This receiver's going to go and crush in motion, and you're going to get a linebacker kind of isolated one-on-one. And Ekeler can either break inside, sit down, or pivot outside, depending on the leverage of the linebacker. Very simple stuff, but it's stuff that's extremely effective in a lot of offenses. Again, you get all the space in the world in the middle of the field. You get the linebacker kind of isolated on Ekeler, and Ekeler's able to just give him a quick stick and break inside, wide open over the middle. Nice, easy gain, first down. And again, you'll see it from the end zone angle here. You're going to get this linebacker who is playing initially with inside leverage. Ekeler's able to get him to overcommit outside with that little juke outside that gets the linebacker to just open himself up a little bit more outside and opens up this huge gap in the middle of the field. And what's easier for a rookie quarterback than a nice, easy throw right over the middle to the running back for a nice, easy gain? Just as easy as screens. And Ekeler stood out on a couple of games that I watched in screens game. And you see this one here against the Bears again. They're just going to run a simple screen. They're going to bring this receiver across on a jet sweep fake. They're going to fake a run. And then Herbert's going to kind of pivot out to the right side, and then he's going to throw it back as part of a nice big play action fake. And so you see there's the fake. He kind of pivots out. Then Ekeler kind of pulls up. And when he gets out here, he doesn't exactly have a great screen in front of him. He's got his left tackle blocking one guy. These are his guards. His center's left back inside. So he's got his two guards here, and you've got a free defender coming off the edge. So as Ekeler catches this pass, he's kind of got nowhere really to go. He's just got to make this first guy miss. And he does that. He does a nice job getting inside, making him miss, and then he's off to the races up the sideline. And yeah, I think this was week 6 or 7 this year. This was after he'd come back from his first injury. So he's still obviously suffering the effects of the high ankle sprain that he had, but he was playing through it. But he still had enough burst to get down the field. Anticipates this safety coming across, takes the hit, dives forward and gets the touchdown. And you'll see a better angle from here with the screen where he's able to get out in front, make this guy miss. Again, free defender. His linemen haven't done a great job getting out in front of him, makes the guy miss with a nice little cut, and then gets back outside and sprints down the sideline, and he gets a nice little wall here. You've got the safety coming from deep, and the safety does a nice job making up ground, but you can see he just does a real smart thing of actually bending into the contact so that when he gets hit, he's not going to step out of bounds. He's going to step inbounds and able to dive for the end zone. And that's what he does, dives for the end zone and gets the touchdown. This is the exact same screen that they just ran, this time against Dallas a few weeks later. So again, Dan Quinn got the kind of first look at this. They blocked this a little bit better, but then they get downfield and then Dallas kind of rallies to the ball a little bit more. And you see some nice patience and ability to, again, some shape to beat some guys and make some guys miss. He kind of sets up this block here by jumping inside and then jumping back outside to set up that block, and not only that block, but a couple of others. And then he's able to, again, dart inside before eventually getting wrapped up. So he's able to maximize the screens, even though he maybe isn't quite what he once was, or, last year was battling some injuries and didn't necessarily have the burst that he once had. He still has the smarts to set up blocks and maximize plays. And hopefully, when he's fully healthy this year, and hopefully stays fully healthy, he's able to have that burst along with these smarts to set things up. So as a receiver out of the backfield, again, he's quite a small back, so you can quite often get him leaking out to the flat without being seen. And this is a little play action fake where They have a tight end inserting inside, and these guys all do a nice job selling the fake. You get both linebackers biting up on the run fake, and then they're kind of engaged in blocks, and Ekeler's kind of just here leaking out to the flat with nobody accounting for him. So he makes the catch in the flat out here. He's got all this space to just sprint up the sideline and picks up a huge gain. So those are some ways that he can be used as a receiver. Again, you get these linebackers that are thinking run. It looks very much like a run. They're biting up on the run, and Ekeler's just here leaking out casually into the flat and wide open, huge space, nice big yards with the catch ability.
And Mark, I'm kind of curious with the last play. I mean, obviously it was great. Do you think it was more execution by Ekeler, or was it just a great play design? Like, why did he get so wide open there?
Yeah, it's more good play design than anything Ekeler necessarily did. But again, he's kind of a smaller back, so it's easy to lose track of him behind especially big offensive line that they have with the Chargers. So you can kind of sneak him out into the flat, and sometimes he gets lost. So yeah, it was a nice play design more than Ekeler being amazing himself, but it's something that because of his size, he's able to kind of sneak around a little bit and leak out to the flat without being seen. This is one that I wanted to highlight as well. It looks like we're running low on time, so we're probably going to miss Chin. So I'm going to stick on Ekeler, and this is one where it's a note that I learned from Jay Gruden. He used to talk about it with Chris Thompson all the time. Is running backs are often taught to pass protect first and make sure they're protecting, but then they need to get out into their routes and be part of the passing game because their routes have meaning. And you'll see that here is. And what Gruden used to talk about with Chris Thompson is that he was so quick to identify if there's any rushers, yes, then stay in and protect, obviously, but no, get out and run your route and impact players. And you'll see that here is Ekeler steps up to pass protect, pretty quickly identifies that none of these linebackers are coming, no DBs are coming, it's just the front four, so then he can get out into his route. And the result of that, as we run this through, again, he's looking to protect, nobody's coming, no obvious threats, gets out into his route. And the result of that is suddenly this linebacker over here is having to be a flat defender on this side. So instead of covering the tight end that he was covering, he has to peel off and account for Ekeler running into the flat. And what that means is, as we run this on, that's going to leave the tight end wide open over the middle of the field. And they're going to hit that for a nice big gain. And that's all because Ekeler was real quick at checking his protection and getting out into his route, and is able to impact coverage defenders by just getting into his route and then running his route. It's not that he's run an amazing route, it's that he's got out of the backfield, done his protection assignment quickly and efficiently, and then got out into his route and forced this guy to come off and cover him, which leaves the guy that this linebacker was covering wide open over the middle of the field, and they pick up a first down.
Yeah, it's a great play to just kind of like, again, show the importance of running backs in the passing game, even if they're not touching the ball, because they impact the routes are drawn up to, affect certain defenders. And like Mark just pointed out there, that route was drawn to kind of bring up that flat defender. So you have that wide open tight end route. And if he's not quick enough to do that, that route is not as open as it is. So it's just love that play. Good pull, Mark.
And then one last little bit I wanted to just finish on with Ekeler in pass protection is running backs, obviously it's important that they're able to block, but more and more common in the league nowadays is that when a running back stays into block, the defense will have a guy do what's called green dogging, which is why I've got this in a green arrow here, which is adding on to the rush. And so what this is here from the Bills is this linebacker is blitzing. And so Ekeler is responsible for the linebacker, so he's going to slide across and protect and pick him up. But what that means is that the Bills were playing a man coverage behind it. So this linebacker that was in the box was responsible for Ekeler. So he's initially going to follow Ekeler across the line of scrimmage and then realize that Ekeler is staying into block, which then means he's free to just join the rush and add on. And in this situation, it works out okay for the offense because he's a little bit late to recognize what's happening. And again, Ekeler does a nice job identifying and making the block, and the ball's coming out before this guy is able to impact the play. But because Ekeler is staying into pass protect, they're able to add on an extra rusher. So the effect of him staying into pass protect isn't necessarily always the best because it can sometimes result in extra rushers and more pressure on the quarterback. So sometimes the option is to just let Ekeler go out and run a route. And you'll see that here again against the Bills later on in the same game. They're going to bring, I think this is a safety off the slot or off the tight end, and he's going to blitz. And sometimes you would have the running back pick up this blitzer off the edge and protect, but they're just going to let him run hot to the flat, because what they know is going to happen is if this guy blitzes, the running back can get to the flat, and they've got this linebacker having to get out all the way out to the flat to try to make a play. So we'll run this through, and you'll see it essentially becomes a game of, can the quarterback get the ball out to Ekeler in flat before he's either hit by this blitzer or this linebacker can get out there? And you'll see the quarterback quickly sees the blitz coming, gets the ball out, and Ekeler's able to make the catch in the flat before the linebacker gets out there. And that again gives Ekeler some time to then make a move. And this is a rep where you see that Ekeler does still have something. And again, this is late in the season when he's, supposedly had 2 high ankle sprains and playing hurt, but he's still able to turn back inside, make that guy miss, get up the field and get a first down. So the point overall is that, yes, he's a good pass protector, and that will definitely come in handy. But sometimes, especially in the modern NFL, the trend is if a running back stays in to protect, you're going to get add-ons, and it's going to cause more players to rush. So sometimes you want to let the running back release into a route, make him be a hot receiver, and get the ball out quickly to him, because he can go make plays like this. And Ekeler has, as it's shown in that one, he went and made a play like that, and went and made a first down. So there's more than one way for a running back to pass protect, and sometimes it's running a hot route and catching a ball in the flat and going making a guy miss and picking up a first down like that. So I think he's a nice pickup, and he's someone that's going to be a real valuable piece for whoever they end up drafting at 2 overall.
Look at Easton Stick there with that play.
Yeah, I saw that. Getting a lot of PT on these reps out here. So
it's good stuff for, I don't know. We're not talking about quarterbacks at all, but that's just a great kind of quarterback play that, might, again, is only like a 1-yard throw, but it's good quarterback stuff there.
Very good quarterback play. Once again, I want to thank the 1,500 people that are watching across all platforms on YouTube, Twitter, and everything. Twitter and Twitch. I appreciate that. If you guys have any questions for Nick and Mark, we'll be closing up pretty soon. We're here for you guys. We promised you Jeremy Chin, but I guess we'll shelve that for next week. We went in depth with blocking.
Just read Mark's article.
Just read Mark's article on Substack as well. Thank you for that plug. I love that. Let's kind of break it down, guys. One little kind of sentence summary to kind of bring closure to this. I guess overall, generally positive. Are they positive remarks in regard to getting Bobby Wagner and Austin Ekeler? And what do you kind of envision their fit this upcoming fall? I guess Mark, we'll start off with you.
Yeah, well, we talked about Bobby Wagner being the Mike linebacker and not coming off the field. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. It'll be interesting to see how the guys around him fit, but I think that's kind of going to be you plug him in the middle of that defense and let him be, because he's proven that he can do that. I like that pickup, and the off the field stuff with the veteran leadership and stuff that he provides is obviously a huge benefit to the young players, and hopefully someone like a Jamin Davis or whatever can learn from that. I certainly think Jamin Davis has some maturing to do as a player and probably a person off the field, judging by certain things. But learning from Bobby Wagner is not going to hurt. So that definitely is a nice pickup. And then Ekeler, I was kind of skeptical of, because at the time they signed him, all the running backs were getting signed for like 10 or 12 million average, and I was like, please don't be spending that on a running back that's 28. That is not wise spending. But
work for PFF, man. You already got it down.
So I was a little bit worried, but having spent basically the entire day today watching him, he still has a little bit of juice as a runner, and that's fine, but I don't think he'll be used as a runner so much. It's going to be the pass protection that Nick did a great job showing, how good he is at identifying stuff and getting himself in position, and that is more than half the battle for running backs, and he does it consistently well, which is a huge plus. But then also he still has some juice as a receiver, and you can use him in different ways, and you can get him out of the backfield on hot routes, and sometimes that's just as effective as pass protection. I like that pickup. The more I've watched of him, the more I like that pickup as well.
Gotcha. Nick, are you in general agreement? Anything additive you want to say about, what Mark said?
I love the Bobby Wagner signing. I mean, honestly, both of these linebacker and running backs aren't really typically positions of high value in terms of, if we're looking at the analytics side of it. But again, I think both of them they're cheap deals and they're not going to really break the bank. And it brings you a veteran presence that they haven't had at the linebacker position specifically in a very, very long time. And you know exactly what you're going to get from them. And you don't have to worry about what they're going to do. And it's Ekeler is the same. I mean, it's a great thing to have for a young quarterback is, a veteran, experienced running back who knows where he's supposed to be, knows what he's supposed to do. You don't have to worry about, a young running back next to you learning the exact same things that you're learning. You can just trust him to be where he is. And that's half the battle is just doing your assignment and doing your job. And the thing with Ekeler is I was, again, with Mark, a little concerned about, paying running backs and whatnot, but it seems like a pretty cheap deal. And from what I've seen and what Mark kind of showed is that he still has that wiggle, still can kind of make guys miss. I think it's the more open field, long sort of speed that he's kind of lacking right now, which is understandable, but still being able to make people miss is kind of the key.
Gotcha. So Mark and Nick, thank you guys for always breaking down the film, making it very digestible for all of us to watch and kind of, take some information from. I appreciate it. Next week, it sounds like we're doing one more free agency pod, maybe just kind of focusing on Jeremy Chinn and, whoever else we kind of, tickles our fancy. If you guys have anyone you want us to focus on, please drop that on the Twitter feed just so we can kind of keep a perspective on it. We'll be looking at some draft picks coming up too. Maybe JJ McCarthy. I know he's kind of a hot topic in Commander circles now too. So we'll see how that goes. Once again, thanks for everything, guys. We'll see you guys next Tuesday at 4:30. Peace out. See you guys.